And it's through this game that I think has really showcased the different avenues in which Arsenal have improved. They're a top side, a special side, one that I believe could go on and win the title. I think it's really important to highlight the gravity of this match. Not only is it Arsenal going for a title, but it's also Tottenham going for top 4. And at the same time, it's a derby in which one of the teams has the possibility of stopping the other one from winning major silverware. And we can't let that be understated. We can't underestimate the gravity that surrounds this game. And it's normally at this point where I would look towards the statistics and say, this team did really well and that's why they deserve to win. But I can't do that. And that's not because Arsenal statistically are worse, it's because Arsenal just looked composed. They looked the better side. And while the individuals didn't perform, I don't think Arsenal were the better side individually at all. I thought Tottenham generally played the better football. And that's why it's so strange for me to say that I think Arsenal deserved to win. They were the more composed in the situations that they needed to be. And aside from the anomalies like Kai Havertz, who had 8 out of his 10 aerial duels won, there are a lot of lacklustre performances from Arsenal. Takahiro Tomiyasu actually only won 1 duel in the entire match. And generally, Arsenal's passing wasn't very good. But the system that Mikel Arteta has created and the system that he's orchestrated and got these players playing really did come out on top. And when you think about Ange Postecoglou and you think about the way that both of these managers' systems will clash, I really do think it was Mikel Arteta's that came out on top, not just from an offensive point of view, but from a defensive point of view. Ange Postecoglou didn't really have an answer to the way that Arsenal managed to stay compact, stay composed, and then hit Tottenham on the break. One of the most impressive things about Arsenal this season has been their defence, and it was on show yet again in this game against Tottenham. The way that they maintained their really tight-knit play, they really compacted the space, and they made sure that the Tottenham could not go through the centre of the pitch, and it was down to a couple of things. Number one was the setup and the formation of them when they did not have the ball. So you have the back four really close, really compact, pushing in close to each other, and then you have Thomas Partey and Declan Rice dropping next to each other, making sure they hold that double pivot. And it is a double pivot because it allows for Martin Odegaard and Kai Havertz to essentially mirror that a little bit further forwards, and it creates this box. And what this box does is really stop any passes going through this centre channel. It also prevents the passes through to the likes of Maddison and Bentancur. Saka and Trossard come infield a little bit more, and you see this essential 4-4-2 formation. Now it's very flexible, but there's a number of dynamic aspects to it. The first one being is the press. Now the press gets orchestrated by one of these two wingers or by one of the two forward players. When this happens, a triangular effect happens here and happens here, and it means that the three of them push up at the same time. This creates almost a synchronized effect when pressing and going forwards. So if Saka triggers, White and Partey both go at the same time. It means that they essentially have a symmetry to the way that they want to press forwards. And what this did to Tottenham in particular in this match is it prevented the passes to get through to the likes of Maddison and Bentancur. The space was cut off in the central areas, and it forced Højbjerg, Davies and Porro to have to go around. And it meant just that it was that little bit more difficult to try and penetrate this Arsenal defence, forcing them to go for crosses, which obviously Gabriel and Saliba ate up 4, 5, 6 times in the game. It was just so easy to deal with those crosses because of Arsenal's height, because of their dominating capabilities, and let's be honest, Heung-min Son, Bentancur, Maddison aren't exactly going to be winning headers. I think that's why Richarlison came on later on in the game, because they needed a different option. It was brilliantly thought out by Arsenal, and it was through this dynamic defensive play that allowed them to get a foothold in what would otherwise be a really, really dangerous affair. The lack of set-piece awareness on a number of occasions really did show Tottenham's frailties at times. And while Arsenal really did hinder themselves in certain moments, they also had the character, the ability, and the structural solidity to be able to get themselves over the line. And it's through all of this that I think really highlights the fact that this Arsenal side are just special. I don't say that lightly. They are really good in nearly every single aspect. They're very good defensively, they can exploit teams' weaknesses, they have very good set pieces, and they can also score goals from open play. It was through this game against Tottenham that I think a load of these were highlighted. We're going to start with their set pieces and the way they exploited Tottenham on a couple of occasions, and to a certain extent I think Tottenham were quite naive to this. I don't think they really adapted well enough, and if anything they were a bit too honest, and the honesty is something that I really want to focus on, because if we take a look here we can see that Ben White is currently up against Vicario. Now he did this on a number of occasions, and while you may say that that's unfair, you may say that that's unsportsmanlike, you've got to do anything that you possibly can to win, within reason of course. You need to play within the lines of the law, but at the same time you can bend rules a little bit, and I don't think Tottenham would be just shying away from that. I think they need to understand that. So the fact that they didn't have anyone to really get on to Ben White is a problem. The second thing is the way that Tottenham combat Arsenal, the way that Arsenal really managed to dominate, and it was through this battle here between Tomiyasu and between Højbjerg that it really became quite apparent. Tomiyasu didn't really need to do a lot, but he's the wrong side of Højbjerg, which makes Højbjerg want to get his head on it. It then flicks it into the goal and it becomes 1-0 to Arsenal. Now these are a couple of different moments, but they really do highlight Arsenal's smartness, their cleverness in these situations. Tottenham being again a little bit naive. Now we can take a better look at the goal after it's gone in, because we can see from this, we can see Ben White and Vicario, and we can also see Tomiyasu and Højbjerg. But what's really apparent is the fact that Ben White doesn't stay, and I really rate that. I think that's really important. Ben White makes his difference, he offsets Vicario, he unbalances him, and then he moves off into a more central role to either allow himself to get a tap in, but also to make sure he's onside as well if there's ever a flick on. He knows probably that it's going to the front post, so he wants to get into position. It's really well done, and the tactical set piece coach for Arsenal needs to be given, again, a load of credit. Tottenham are the 7th worst side for defending set pieces, and Arsenal are the best side at scoring them. So you would have thought that Tottenham would have done that homework, and I can't really see too much evidence of this. Ben White does a massive job on Vicario, and it takes a leader like either a Ben Davies or a Romero or someone to look at this and think, that's not right. You need to do something about that. But they didn't. Arsenal exploited this and they got their first goal. Ben White moves off, as you can see, and Vicario is unsettled. The ball is in the air currently and he's not set, and that is a massive problem for a goalkeeper. But that was the first real big moment. Højbjerg gets his head on it and obviously goes in. But look at Vicario, he's again not set, not ready. Not ready. Really well done by Arsenal. Now let's forward it on to Arsenal's second goal. And not only were they really good at set pieces, but they also know how to exploit space. I think Tottenham really allowed the emotions to get the better of them. You could argue whether these two moments here were penalties. I don't particularly think they were. I don't think there's enough contact for the Kulusevski one. And I don't think the Declan Rice challenge onto James Maddison is one either. James Maddison, who had a terrible game, I might add. But the ball here is then taken away by these 5 Arsenal players. I'll repeat that again. The 5 Arsenal players who were aggressive, who were tenacious, and managed to get the ball out to Saka. It's utilising a couple of passes that really just carves through this Tottenham defence, and I've got to say this is nowhere near good enough from Tottenham, but it's brilliant from Arsenal. Saka is able to take the ball and then pass it through to Havertz, who had a brilliant game again. He plays through Saka afterwards, who is on the last line. Really utilising this space right here, and it's through this that Arsenal managed to exploit Tottenham's main weakness in this game, and that was Ben Davies. And the fact that Tottenham didn't do anything to really mitigate that is not only on Ange Postecoglou, but also on the players that he has on the pitch. Havertz plays the pass over in a brilliant fashion, and Saka is able to get onto it. But it was through this that Arsenal were able to get a real foothold in the game. Arsenal's attacking play actually went predominantly down Arsenal's right-hand side, and that's to really highlight the weakness that they thought Tottenham had in Ben Davies. It's unfortunate that Destiny Udogie is not fit, but of course every side has to roll with the punches. Now, one thing that I think Tottenham really struggle with on occasion is the reliance on Mickey van der Ven and his ability to really dominate in those 1v1 situations, but in this particular moment he was not able to. And it's down to the great pass from Havertz, which essentially isolates Saka onto Ben Davies in a 1v1 situation. Now, I've got sympathy for Davies here because I think he's trying his best, and I also think that pushing that high up really did isolate Saka in a way that Tottenham didn't need. Saka needed to get back onto his left foot, and that's the one critique I will have of Davies, who failed to really show him onto his weaker side. Saka cuts inside and is then able to finish, but if you look here, it's nearly a 2-on-2 almost, with Odegaard about to enter the box. Van de Ven, if a pass was played, is probably not going to be able to intercept that. So Arsenal would have scored, you would have thought, in a number of different ways. And it's through the setup of Tottenham that I think Arsenal seriously exploited them. It just wasn't good enough from Spurs at this current moment in time, and Arsenal really made them pay. It also made them pay in the third goal, which, of course, Tottenham fans are going to feel real, just angry about, because of the attempted foul or the possible foul that would have been on Van de Ven. Now, I've got to say something about this moment, and it's something about being streetwise. It's about utilising the dark arts of the game, and while some people might not like it, it definitely exists. And Arsenal are a team that have grown up. They've understood that they need to show themselves to be really inhabited within the dark arts of the game to be able to get something out of a match as tightly contested as this. Now, what you don't see in this current image is what Kai Havertz does, and we're going to take a look at that now, because what you see is two hands on the back of Mickey van de Ven. I understand why Tottenham fans are aggrieved. I understand why they're not happy with this decision. It's a 50-50 situation. You've seen them giving, you've seen them not, and I understand where everyone's coming from. The consistency in football is just not there right now. We've seen a challenge for Chelsea being given against them, VAR, Pochettino not very happy about that, and then this happens. It's just down to the interpretation of the referee, which is really unfortunate, but it's just the state of where the game is. Havertz does well to get a little bit of space for himself. I don't think Tottenham defend this well enough, I'll be honest with you. Romero's nowhere near the ball. Van de Ven, yes, he gets shoved out of the way. I understand that. How much contact is there? We're not sure. But Havertz does a really good job of getting his head onto it and then just rifling it into the net. I think it's really important, nay, crucial to note that Arsenal really could have lost this game. They were 3-0 up against Tottenham away from home at half-time, and they could have thrown it away. A couple of mistakes here and here means that they really could have just fallen apart. The attacking momentum shifting either way. Tottenham really coming out on top, the crowd against them, but they didn't wilt. They stayed strong, they stayed composed, and in the end, they got the job done. And sometimes it's not about the performance. Sometimes it's just about getting the result over the line. And when you're in such a tight race like Arsenal are, having to make sure that every single point you get is perfect. Every single result is perfect. Sometimes you need to just grind out a result, and oftentimes they're not able to do it. They weren't able to do it 2 years ago. They weren't able to do it last year. This shows a progression, a movement, and an ability to grind out the most important and the most difficult of results. And if that doesn't show championship caliber, I don't know what does. Clearly, they have improved. Clearly, they have really bettered themselves in a number of scenarios. And it's through this game that I think has really showcased the different avenues in which Arsenal have improved. They're a top side, a special side, one that I believe could go on and win the title.